Well, I've always said, and others also, that Brentwood did not happen by accident.
People here are welcoming, they're inviting, there's something to do, there's volunteer opportunities, there's way to get involved. People here, they give back.
You know, one thing about Brentwood, it's a special place. And things that people deem special, they care about. We care about Brentwood.
In 1969, when the interstate came through Brentwood, several prominent members of the community realized that life in Brentwood would change. And they decided that they didn't really want to be governed by the zoning regulations of the county, that they wanted to dictate their own future. John Sloan, Glenn Noble, Jim Redd were three of those very active members of the community who helped lead the fight for incorporation. They said, well, if we're going to do it, let's don't go small. They made their case to the public, and they held a referendum, and they voted to incorporate. Jim Ward probably had more impact than 95% of the people of Brentwood realize. His dad, Truman Ward, owned Maryland Farms. They had a beautiful, beautiful horse farm for years. In the 70s, they realized with the interstate and the incorporation of the city that business people would be attracted to living in this area. Well, why not work in this area too? So they started building Maryland Farms as we know it. They wanted what they called then a premier office park, and it caught on like hotcakes. Even today in Brentwood, our population is 20 to 25,000 people less at night when the offices are empty. Vance Little was the city historian for Brentwood from probably the mid-'80s until his death about 7 or 8 years ago. Vance was responsible for the Brentwood Historic Commission being what it is today. Vance wrote many, many, many books detailing the history of Brentwood. He was in the paper. He had a column that he wrote. He really, really got people tuned into what was going on, and he was such a social person. He was a real gentleman. He was beloved in Brentwood and has done more for the history of this city than I think anybody ever will. And he is still missed. I believe that the men and women who envisioned Brentwood as a self-governing city were brave souls. I mean, they have this fantastic idea, but how do you go about making it happen? They had no budget, they had no government experience. All they had was a vision. And that vision was a community where people could live and enjoy the green space around them, feel safe in their homes, have a sense of neighborhood, and have good education for their children. That's what they wanted. And that's not asking much. That's what every American wants everywhere. I don't care if you live in a Brentwood or you live in a blue-collar community. That's what you want. And I think they were very fortunate and they were able to provide that. Every vision and every dream doesn't come true, but I think the dream of Brentwood came true. And we need to safeguard that and protect it for all it's worth.
I grew up here with my parents. They still are in the same house that I spent most of my life. My sisters were raised here as well. I love it because my kids actually get to go back to the house I grew up in, so I think that's really neat.
My family moved to Brentwood when I was in probably 3rd grade. But growing up in Brentwood, it's changed a lot for the better.
I think the community definitely had an impact on me growing up. For one, the schools are huge. You know, top-rated schools in the county and the state.
You know, the good thing about Brentwood is that you learned a lot of valuable lessons, and one of which is just to give people a chance. As one of the few African Americans here in the community at that time, they had to give me a chance and I had to give them a chance. The cool thing about being a kid is kids aren't blinded by all the noise in the environment, so a lot of your relationships are true.
Now my daughter is in elementary school, and to see her go through the same county school system that I did, it kind of brings it full circle a little bit, but it also brings the comfort of of home that way as well.
One attribute that I'd say I try to instill in my children today is don't just assume, be open to other people, other cultures, other religions.
It kind of seemed a little crazy at the time, the thought of raising my children in the exact same place I grew up. On one hand, I thought, have I ever really left? And then on the other hand, I thought, I loved my childhood, so why wouldn't I?
Brentwood's funny because you leave, but then you come back. So for me, I left when I went off to college, but Nashville and Brentwood were always home.
I lived in New York and I absolutely loved that city, but I felt like a little part of the South was missing. So I wanted to make sure to raise my family where I grew up or somewhere like it, and I just feel like it's one of a kind.
One thing that brought my wife, Christy, and I back to Brentwood was Brentwood created an environment that I thought would be good to raise a family.
I think so often people leave home after high school or after college and they want to get as far away as they possibly can or explore something else. And I think there's also something to be said about coming home, and not in a I gave up kind of way, but in this place is so special to me that I can't imagine living anywhere else, or I want to provide that same experience and lifestyle for my family as well.
Brentwood over time is becoming more of a melting pot. It's definitely positive to see more diversity in the area. Having more people come from around the world makes a difference. And I think that the more people that come from different areas of the country can continue to make Brentwood better.
I want to raise my children in a world where you are kind to each other. And I think the Brentwood that I grew up in was not as diverse as the Brentwood my children are being raised in. And I absolutely love that they're going to be surrounded by all types of people, and they are going to learn from one another, and that kind is the new cool, you know? I mean, I think that's it.
My name is Marissa Sashti. I'm 18 years old, and I recently graduated from Ravenwood High School. When I was 5 years old, my family moved from Atlanta here in Brentwood. My family decided, my parents, that they wanted to, raise us in a little quieter town. Atlanta's a pretty big city. My dad ended up getting a job offer here in Nashville, and they decided to move to Brentwood. So I moved here when I was 5, and I've been living here in the Brentwood area ever since. My upbringing in Brentwood really instilled some core values in me, like family, community, education. So much of that was a part of my childhood. I love all the resources that the community provides, whether it be the library or the parks or the schools where they can come together and kind of interact with one another are really special. And I loved being in an environment where I felt like so many opportunities were offered to me, whether it be with courses, with teachers, with testing. There was always an abundance of opportunity to really let me shine and do my best academically, athletically, in sports and clubs, whatever it may be. And I feel like the environment of Brentwood really fostered that. In some ways, I really hope that Brentwood stays the same. There's so many things that I love about the foundation and the values of Brentwood that really are good for children, are good for instilling those values, and the way that Brentwood does it is really great, and I hope that those things stay the same in the future. So really what makes Brentwood a great city is that it's such a door of opportunity for whatever you would like to do. And I feel like what Brentwood really does is it shapes you, it gives you that open-minded community to let you become what you want to be. And the education, the family-oriented community really brings out the best in everyone.
I think Brentwood is a great place to live because of the people who choose to live here. They're willing to get out and work for their community, and I think that's what makes this a really wonderful place to live.
I think Brentwood is an incredible place because it has this small town southern charm, meets a little bit of that big city life with a lot of diversity and a lot of loving families.
Brentwood really brings out the best in everyone. Gives you that open-minded community to let you become what you want to be.
I think Brentwood's a great place to live. And part of that is, it's just a great place to raise a family. But come ready to get your kids involved. Come ready to be involved because the community is very open to it.
That's the way Brentwood's always been. When people come, they stay because it's hard to find another Brentwood.
the foremost thing that has made Brentwood what it is searching for and maintaining a quality of life that is a little bit more than just working for a living.